In Layton Beard from the Automobile Association. Now, good evening to you, Layton. You know, we always chat, and I want to ask you first: is it the usual suspects? Brent crude still high, the rand still weakening, or are there other factors as well?
There are other factors, but they're smaller in comparison to the two you've mentioned. You know, when you break the fuel price increase down, around 75% of it is as a result of those international oil prices, Sally, and that's contributing, obviously, the bulk of what we see. The weakness of the rand is playing a part, certainly not helping, and it's contributing as well. And then we had that 30 cents added for the slate levy that's coming into play as well. So a lot of different factors. Some of the others are a little less important, but certainly those three factors are the main culprits this time around.
I wonder if you could talk to us about the fuel levy. One of the motorists that was interviewed a little earlier was saying government needs to step in now and adjust the fuel levy. There was a lot of talk. Was it late last year or early this year? Probably late last year, given the problems last year, of adjusting the fuel levy. There was some temporary relief. I'm not sure where that conversation went, because there was a task team set up. There was a great deal of energy on the part of government to really take a sharp look at the fuel levy. Has it actually changed at all?
No, it certainly hasn't, and that talk, unfortunately, has gone silent. Look, our view has always been in relation to the general fuel levy, which is around R4 on every litre. If you were to simply remove it from the fuel price, there would obviously be a gain, and people would pay R4 a litre less for fuel. The concern is that it is such an important tax for government. It's the fourth biggest tax in terms of revenue collection. It generates in the region of 110 billion rand to the fiscus. So government is going to be loath just to do away with that money. In fact, they can't. And especially in this economy where we know revenue collection is already down, government is not simply going to say, well, okay, let's cut that R4 from the fuel levy, from every litre of fuel. We're okay without that income. No, they're going to find another mechanism. It might be in the form of increased VAT. It might be in the form of increased personal or companies tax. It might be in the form of a new tax. And that certainly is not something that we would want to see either. The Road Accident Fund currently is pegged at R2.18 a litre. Now, for us, there is wiggle room within that levy. The RAF as an institution, in our opinion, is weakly managed. It's in financial distress. People are not benefiting from the RAF as an institution, yet we're contributing around 45 billion rand a year to the RAF. And certainly there is something that can be said about that contribution. In terms of the other makeup, sadly, Sally, and I think this is a point we've also made, is government, if there are any plans, is certainly not taking South Africans into its confidence and telling us what those plans are. And we would certainly like to see what they are, if there are any.
So what actually happened to that task team and that project to look at the levies?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm aware, you know, it began and never went further than that. Whether it's running in the background, which is obviously quite possible, we certainly aren't aware, and we are, unfortunately, sadly, as a civil society organization with a very vested interest in this conversation, not involved in that discussion either.
The diesel jump, that's nearly R2.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant, especially bearing in mind how much industry uses diesel. I'm thinking of our farms already under so much pressure. Talk to me about the knock-on effect of the on the economy.
Well, I mean, inflation is certainly going to feel it. You know, when you look at the input costs in, as you said, the agricultural sector, the mining sector, manufacturing, we've seen retailers releasing numbers that are mind-blowing in terms of the money that's been spent on keeping generators operational. And it's impacting on their bottom line. And what we have to remember is that they cannot carry those costs alone. And, you know, when you look at input costs, you've got to ask yourself, how do we still turn a profit, and how do we recover those input costs? Well, at the end of the day, the people at the till who are paying are assisting in covering those costs. So your loaf of bread cost you R11.50 last month. It may cost you R11.25 this month. Now, that's a 25-cent increase on one item. On a basket of goods, it's going to accumulate, and the cumulative impact of that is going to be quite heavy. People's discretionary income is going to diminish, and it's going to be felt by the economy. So the impact of all of this is going to be felt, and it may only present itself in a few weeks' time when inflation numbers and other data is released. But certainly, in our view, the impact is going to be negative.
And is there anything that motorists can do to save fuel while they're driving? I mean, are there really significant measures that you can take to save, whether you're driving a diesel or petrol car, or are they actually minimal?
Yeah. Look, I think every situation is going to be different. Drive at an even speed if you're on the highway. Avoid the short trips around the corner to go get milk and bread from the shops. If you can walk, do that. Take a dog for a walk as well. It will be healthier. It's something that I'm starting to do and heeding my own advice. But yeah, that's something that I think people can do. Obviously, keep your car in a good condition. Obviously, make sure your tires are inflated correctly. That's going to use optimal fuel. Very important, thing that we are telling people is if you are able to negotiate a hybrid working model with your employer, that is something you can consider doing. Leaving earlier or later for work so that you avoid that idling in stop-start traffic. That is obviously something you can do. Don't overload your vehicle. Be aware of the fact that your aircon is going to use a small motor. It's going to impact on your fuel consumption. So there are things people can do. Obviously, relook at your budget, adjust it where necessary. If you are planning a trip at the end of the year, be aware that there may be, or that there is going to be this extra money you're going to need to give towards that. So there are things that you need to be aware of. Keep yourself informed. I mean, they may seem like small changes, but I think at the end of the day, everything will add up, Sally.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the chat. Layton Beard from the Automobile Association. Now, still ahead.